Welcome back to another episode of the Max Term Podcast. Kyle Stitcher alongside James Finch. And today we continue through our contract projections. This time we are looking at extension eligible players. If you've listened to our previous two episodes, we appreciate it. Max Term Podcast available on all major podcast platforms. Might be a good idea to go back and catch up on those, especially the RFA episode. That was our latest episode, kind of last week's release. And what we did in that one is we went team by team, got a little lengthy, but I think we kind of gave a decent overview of where teams kind of stand a little bit going into the offseason, especially with their RFAs and cap space and all that. So the goal this episode is to go through extension eligible players. We're going to go team by team again. Some teams we're probably going to move through a little bit quicker for the sake of time today. But we're going to start Anaheim, go down to the Washington, Winnipeg's, Vegas. I was trying to do my alphabet in my head real quickly, and I forgot which letters were in the correct order. And I don't know which players might be worth talking about on those teams. So we'll get there. So we appreciate you listening. As I said, Max Stern Podcast available on all major podcast platforms. Our contract projections, including what we are referencing, are available on our website, afpanalytics.com. Tweet, post, whatever we want to say, our analysis through X, Blue Sky, Threads. Maybe going to try and get on and do some more Instagram stuff coming up as well. So we appreciate you following us at AFP Analytics on all those platforms. And I think with that, we'll get to it, starting with the Anaheim Ducks. Couple names we'll kind of throw out and kind of move through Anaheim pretty quickly because their offseason really revolves around the restricted free agents, which is why you should probably listen to that previous episode first, especially for them. But a couple names here that maybe could get an extension, but a lot of these make sense to kind of see how this season plays out, to see, well, how their performance ultimately goes. Because I think there's question marks that can be said about most of these players for one reason or another.
Yeah, so Kreider and Killorn, I think, can kind of be mentioned at the same time. So older wingers thought of as leaders. Because of their age, it's probably not something that gets done this offseason. It is probably a let's see how it goes. And then there's a younger defenseman, Drew Hellison. Kind of the same idea there, that they probably wait, and that's probably more so of just kind of seeing what his role fully ends up being, kind of letting him play out the season. We also kind of need to see what their defensive group looks like after the draft, after free agency, because there could be multiple pieces on the way out the door or multiple pieces that are kept that would kind of keep him for sure into the bottom pair. So Hellison he would be an RFA next off season. It's probably a sit and wait. And then with Kreider and Killorn, it might just be a team not wanting to do that quite yet. Let's go another year and see how things look. Ville Husso would need a deal. Tim Washy would need a deal. Those are also ones that probably wait just due to not really enough of an importance to get them done right now.
Yeah, age probably prevents Kreider Killorn from getting done, but who knows? Maybe if there maybe a token kind of extent 1 year, 2 year extension for those guys could be possible if it's very clear they're going to continue playing. Yeah, as you said, Drew Hellison's probably the only other super notable one, but probably hasn't shown enough to really commit the term to it. And the fact that our projections 2 years, just under 3 million, that's a deal that's probably going to be there next off season too. It just it doesn't make a lot of sense for either side to kind of lock themselves into something that they could end up unhappy with by the end of by the end of next season, going into next off season.
Yep. Next up's Boston. I'd say a handful of names kind of worth discussing. Pavel Zacha's the big one. He's kind of found himself in a top six center role there. But then there's also Casey Middlestat, who you could say the same exact thing about. So we have Zaka a little bit higher, 5 years, 7.3. Middlestat is a 4 year projection at about 6.5. I think those are two guys who would be viewed more as middle six players, and that's kind of the price range for a guy who's able to play center. Could that get done? Maybe I lean towards Zaka a little bit more than Middlestat. Just from a impact standpoint, I think that's a better fit there. Then you kind of move into some younger players for Boston. So Mason Lowray, if he's still there, we'll see. There are some rumors around him. He's eligible for an extension. We've got him three by about 4.8. That's largely driven by offensive power play ability. His development as a defenseman has not been where they would want it to be. Fraser Minton, this is one that I could see Boston trying to get done this offseason, but I could also see the player side wanting to wait a little bit. Right now, got 3 years at about 3.8, 3.9. He looked real good this season for Boston, and that's kind of one where I'd wonder if the player would like to wait and kind of get another full season, and because that value could shoot up a little bit. And some other kind of down the lineup players, Kuznetsov needs a deal. Some fourth line guys, Corrali and Mike Eastamont, both would be eligible for extensions if they want to kind of keep that bottom six intact.
I think I agree Zaka over Middlestat if anyone gets done here. Middlestat had a pretty good regular season. Playoffs against Buffalo did not go as well. Zaka was definitely the more impactful player at the in that series. Both I think as a listener, viewer, you might be kind of wondering, wow, those contracts that they're talking about for these guys are really high. Keep in mind, we're doing this under the projected salary cap for the not this upcoming season, but the next season, which is slated to be 113.5 million. And based on Gary Bettman's press conference, where they're projecting hockey related revenues to go, there's a chance that could end up even higher because they have to have an pre-prescribed split with the players, and one way to get there is through what the salary cap is. The other is basically top-up payments at the end of the season through escrow. That's going to be the choice for this upcoming season, but maybe they do increase the cap a little bit more going forward to make those top-up payments a little bit lower. We'll see how that goes, but we're working off $113.5 million salary cap. So we're still figuring out a percentage of cap that we think the player is going to be signing for, multiplying that by 113.5 million in this situation. So these deals are going to seem very, very high, but keep in mind that's under a salary cap that's almost $10 million higher than what it's going to be this offseason. So just 1% is an extra $1 million, which is a lot, which visually is going to look like a lot of money. So Boston will be interesting what happens. Zaka, I could see potentially getting done. Our projections for the RFAs for Boston and just in general, I don't, I generally don't prescribe to it making sense to sign a bridge deal a year ahead of time. It just, it you're kind of, again, I referenced it with Anaheim, you're kind of locking yourself into a deal that both parties could regret in a year or two. So why get it done ahead of time? Kind of let things play out. You still are going to have control of the player to kind of get something done. I think if anything, maybe Fraser Minton's showing enough to get a long-term contract. I'd be surprised, but I think if anything gets done there, that's maybe the most likely. But yeah,
I
Boston.
think the issue there is he had a good season and looked good, but for us, like doing a projection, the comparable players aren't really there yet for that extension. And I think to kind of sum up what you just said, just because we have a projection doesn't mean we think it's likely to happen. And specifically for the RFAs, like a Fraser Minton, 2 by 3.8, I don't know how much that really makes sense for either side because of everything you just laid out. I think it's more good for us to show like that's what we can currently get to. And then just everyone we'd like you and we're talking about it, try and keep in mind that not all of these are like, oh yeah, those are deals that should get done. Some of them are kind of here's where the value might be right now and the situation might be let's hold off on that.
And for our purposes, we've started tracking trending. So starting them now, it allows us to kind of track through a couple iterations of projections to kind of get figure out where they're going based off of their performance. So maybe Zaka, maybe Middlestat, those would be the pressing needs given they would be going into unrestricted free agency. But I don't know if either player is enough where Boston needs to make a decision. One or both of those players could become prime trade deadline candidates for sure, depending on how Boston's season ends up going. I think we move on to Buffalo now. There is one here that is going to be a big decision this offseason and probably one that does need to be resolved in some manner this offseason. And that's Bo Byram right at the top of Buffalo's projected values. Her discussion, I think last week on WGR in Buffalo, basically saying, would you rather pay Alex Tuck or Bo Byram? And that's a very valid question because that's basically their contracts should come in very similarly. So it very likely could be a one or the other. So Byram, we currently have projected 7 years, 9.5 million. Again, that's one that Buffalo probably has to come to some resolution on this offseason.
Yeah, so I'm surprised that specifically is not getting said quite as much. There was talk about him potentially being traded last offseason, and then a deal got done, a short 2-year deal. This is one where I don't think you go throughout the offseason and into next season without an extension. It's you're probably either getting an extension done or you're trying to trade the player. So when we hear rumors of Buffalo looking for a top forward, let's say, like a Robert Thomas, that's a name that's been thrown around, but there's some other big names. And some of the top insiders are even tossing out, well, maybe they'll trade Owen Power. I think it's much more likely it could end up being Byram. And there's other reasons beyond this that it wouldn't be Power, but just the situation they're in with Byram, if that price what he's looking for, or if the situation isn't quite right for him. There's kind of talk around could he want a bigger role on a team, power play one time even, and that's not consistent in Buffalo. So yeah, that's a major decision. It's not the only one, I don't think, because one player who could be dealt this offseason, not necessarily will be, but could be part of a bigger trade would be Jack Quinn. He's also extension eligible. We have a long term and short term. And right now we're looking at short term at about 4.7, long term 4 by 6.5. Um, Came on a little bit this season, started to look more like what we thought Jack Quinn would look like. At the same time, we have to kind of look at Buffalo as a team that, okay, now they've arrived if they want to continue improving where our spots on the roster to do so. And at that point, just like with most contenders, once we get to an offseason where players are eligible to sign a deal, okay, what is the future of said player? So Quinn's kind of that, we'll call him a top 9 winger, can probably play on any of the top 3 lines. And it's just a question of where in the lineup are you looking to improve? If they figure out how to get Tuck done, is Quinn someone that ends up being expendable because you can also fill that gap with a let's say, an ELC player coming up potentially. So that's another name I'd kind of watch and somewhat of a decision for Buffalo. That said, RFA, they do not have to sign the extension this offseason. And as you mentioned, short term is probably not something they would do. It's if they want to commit to the player, long term is probably what happens.
Going down the list kind of quickly for the rest of the Sabres, Jason Zucker, extension eligible. That's probably similar to the couple Anaheim veterans where maybe a token add-on, but more than likely kind of get through the season. If things are going well, you can probably get a deal done. Or, and that's also assuming he wants to continue playing after next season too. Don't know exactly there. Alex Lyon, I would be shocked if anything got done there, given there's already a logjam in net. Connor Timmins, Sam Carrick, Jordan Greenway, Colton Ellis, again, ones that probably aren't getting done. Greenway could be a cap casualty this offseason. The two interesting ones are Yeri Kulik and Noah Oslin. Kulik, probably nothing gets done given he's still recovering from that blood clot issue. Seems like he's going to be able to play next season, which is really all that matters. So I'm not going to spend much time there. Oslin is the one that came on, doesn't have a lot of sample as you kind of laid out for Fraser Minton. Only have a short-term projection right now because there aren't really comps to justify a long-term deal based off of how little he's played. But how much it seems like the organization loves him, I wonder if they would pony up for a big extension to try to get him on a very valuable contract long term. Our
Yeah.
projection 2 years, 3 million per. Again, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for either side to sign up for that right now, but we'll see if Buffalo would be willing to put a big offer on the table for him.
Yeah, they could certainly try and get him in that 6 year ish, 5 mil, kind of that lower. It's still a good chunk of money for a player who doesn't have a ton of sample, isn't arbitration eligible, but like, is that enough? I don't know, but we'll see. Beyond Buffalo, we'd move to Carolina, still playing. Important players potentially at the top, some of their more veteran guys. Gostisbehere would need a deal. Jalen Chatfield, Jordan Stahl might need one. So those guys are all going to kind of be in the 4 to low 5 range, kind of in that order. Gostisbehere doing a lot offensively from the back end for them. In net, they kind of have to figure out that they kind of need to figure out what is their situation long term. So Anderson, just due to his age, I don't think is a long term option. So then you kind of look at Kochetkov, who didn't really play much this year, was out hurt a lot. Is he a piece they want to commit to right now because he was out and didn't really show to be a clear 1A or starter this season? Our deals at 2 years, about 3.7, 3.8 actually. So I don't know if he does that this offseason, having not played much this past year. Some other players, well, really, the only other player of significance would be Jordan Martinook, who has a pretty important role on the team, has been a good fit, played well. So that's one it wouldn't shock me if they got a deal done. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked with any of those forwards or even Chatfield and Gostisbehere, the defensemen, especially as a team that seems to be clicking right now.
Yeah, again, a lot of veterans where I don't envision any of those veterans necessarily going elsewhere. Maybe Gostisbehere testing the market, but he seems to have found a very good fit in Carolina. So I don't know how much urgency there will be for Carolina to get any of those guys locked up. Kochetkov is definitely the interesting one, especially you laid out Anderson, Brandon Busey as well. Just he signed an extension in season for 3 years. So they at least have him under contract. our projection with Kochetkov, 2 years, 4 million, little under 4 million. That would
Yeah,
keep him in tandem with Busey for a couple more years, and then they would be able to start fresh at the end of both those contracts if desired. We'll see there. That one will be interesting, especially considering there's really not sample of him playing after returning from injury. But Anderson, especially if they do end up lifting the cup, I could absolutely see walking away as a champion, basically. And then
yep.
there might be a little bit more of an urgency to get that deal done with Kochetkov. Columbus has some interesting housekeeping to do between their restricted free agents and their extension eligible players. Adam Fantilli, we talked about last episode, is going to likely demand a pretty large contract. But then I would say maybe their best forward at this point, maybe not quite, but Kirill Marchenko
Might be.
might be.
He's
He
very good.
and he's only a year, well, he would be a year away from unrestricted free agency next offseason. So he's going to have a ton of leverage going into this next contract. Dmitry Voronkov, not quite the same level, but also a very good player for them over the past couple of years. Same situation, going to be just a year removed from unrestricted free agency. So a lot of leverage there. They don't have to get deals done because they will be restricted free agents next offseason. But man, if they give Fantilli a big deal and then kind of string those two out as long as possible, one or both of them have big seasons this year, they could be looking at a pretty quick cap crunch between those three players.
Yeah, Marchenko, we've got pretty much at 9 mil on a 5-year deal. Voronkov, 3 by about 6.2. Marchenko is the interesting one because I think if he takes one more step, he can pretty much argue to be paid as kind of one of those like 10 plus mil guys. So that's an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Defensively, Denton Matachuk has been decent. That is one where I don't know if they're ready to fully go long term, but if they do, it probably costs a decent amount of money. 7 by 8 is pretty much our projection. A short term deal, 2 by 4.7, but again, is that the decision they want to make now? I don't know. That probably doesn't happen this offseason. Kent Johnson's an interesting name, just hasn't been a fit there. I don't know if he would even be in Columbus to sign an extension this offseason. We'll see. Merzlikins is kind of on the way out the door. He's not signing a new deal with Columbus at 2.6 million. That's more us just showing this is where his value's at right now. And then just some more bottom of the lineup guys. It's really a focus on Marchenko, Matachuk, and Voronkov. And as you said, like it might be good to get ahead of this at least a little bit. One of the players, at least, trying to lock in a value now versus dealing with everything next offseason.
Yeah, Kent Johnson could be a sneaky extension candidate, but if there is an extension, it's probably not necessarily with Columbus.
Exactly. He's not been a good fit there.
Guess moving on to Calgary.
Yeah, so Blake Coleman sticks out right at the top.
Yeah,
That's another veteran name. One, I don't know if that really happens with Calgary, but even if it were to happen, it's it's kind of similar to the Kreider, Killorn, Zucker. Like Coleman's been very good at as you pull up the graphic for him, it's just all green for our max stat. That's a player I could see it's more likely they'd try and cash in and get some assets to build with, being that his signing age would be 35. With how great he's playing, I'd cash in. 3 years, 6.4 is pretty much our projection. So not insignificant either there. There's some other names on the roster that would potentially make a little more sense for them to lock in if they like Morgan Frost. 4 years, 6.3 is our projection. He will be a UFA. Then they traded for Ryan Strome. I don't really see that being a deal that gets done, but there's some RFAs. Jan Kuznetsov had some of the metrics weren't great, but he played a bigger role in Calgary. That's an RFA that could potentially get a deal. Adam Klapka. I don't even know how to say that name.
You
Hunter.
you Hunter Bruskevich, you wanted to
Okay.
skip through him? Yeah.
No, I skipped over him on accident.
Oh, okay.
Um, I was more looking at the forwards. Like Klapka, I guess could get done. He kind of is what he is at this point. We'll see. I don't expect it to really be an off season where we're seeing Calgary Flame extensions. Unless Coleman like really wants to stay and they can find a deal that makes sense, sure. But it kind of seems like they're either going to be trying to turn some UFAs into future assets or maybe just kind of let the RFAs play out and see what happens.
Yeah, Coleman, I think if it's an extension, it's a sign and extension made with a new team. Frost, I think, is the only one that could be a little bit interesting given he's young enough that he could fit in a kind of rebuild, retool timeline and still be potentially an effective player. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to happen, but he, to me, is of all the names that you talked about, the most likely to at least extend with Calgary. And I think that could make sense for both player and team a little bit there. But as you said, it's probably trading guys out, not necessarily committing to long-term futures with more veteran guys so they don't end up in a situation like they did with Kadri where their hand was kind of forced because they knew it was time to move on and get assets for him.
Chicago. I'll kind of start by saying UFA wise, there's Teravainen and Burakovsky. I don't know if they're really long term fits and sign extensions. That quickly moves us into the RFAs where it's pretty much from an extension standpoint, it's the off season of defensemen. Levshinov's eligible, Renzel, Kaiser, Crevier. Yeah. So we'll see. I go back and forth with what Chicago is going to do because it seems like they have been trying to get some of at least what they consider their core pieces, the young guys, long term. At the same time, it could help them to kind of see like which guy is kind of going to take the reins here. From a draft pedigree standpoint, you'd think Levshinov. They might want to see another step from him. Rinzel had a little bit of hype around him, but I think you want to see more still. Kaiser's played bigger minutes for them, but it hasn't necessarily gone too well, which is kind of the other factor here is essentially or overall defensively, they were not great. They're very young. So I don't know if I'm the team, like maybe I identify a player or two here that I know will develop. But also, if I'm one of these players, if I think I'm going to develop more, I might not want to lock in long term yet.
Yeah, I just can't see it with any of the defensemen. Levshinov just wasn't good enough for the team to probably feel quite comfortable committing what he would demand. Rinzel, I think from the player side would hope to put up more numbers because that's the type of defenseman he is. He also as the season wore on, he lost ice time, was not playing regularly. So I don't see it there. I don't see it with necessarily with Kaiser either. So yeah, probably get Connor Bedard taken care of, which
Yeah.
kind of goes against the mentality of let's try and get our young core locked up as soon as possible because he's still, as of us recording this, sitting out there with in need of a new contract. It will get done, but it's kind of interesting that they kind of got like Frankie Nazar done last offseason, but not Bedard. We'll see if they kind of throw a random one out this offseason. But my guess, since they wait on Bedard, they're going to wait on some of these other guys.
The one I'd kind of wonder if we see a random one, it wouldn't be as big, but like a Ryan Green who got some time on the top
Yeah.
lines, playing even with Bedard. Our projections 3 by 3, that like maybe could get done. They could also try and go longer and see if they can get them in a 4.5 ish, like five. Maybe they buy a UFA year or two. I We'll see. I don't think they go that route, but that could be like a very random one from Chicago that gets done just because of the opportunity they were giving him last year.
Yeah, yeah. Of all those players you mentioned, he's the one that they seem to feel the most comfortable about putting in different situations.
Yep.
Everyone else, all the other young guys, were a little bit sheltered. I guess, unless we want to talk about Chicago giving Andrew Mangiapane an extension, I think we probably move on to the Colorado Avalanche.
Yep.
So Arturi Lehkonen, Scott Wedgwood, Nick Waugh, Ross Colton, Keaton Middleton, Trent Miner, Tristan Nielsen, and some guy named Cale Maker are eligible for extensions with Colorado. I don't know if you've heard of this Cale Maker guy, but I hear he's pretty good.
Yeah, so we've got 8 years, about 15.1. This is difficult. If you've been listening to us for a while, you've probably heard us talk about other top players. It's a little difficult to project what the value is going to be. I'll say Makar, and I guess to give a little bit of a preview, Quinn Hughes as well was part of this. We pretty much had them. I think Makar was just ahead of Hughes.
We might have
Um,
settled on the exact same projection.
okay, we might have. It was very much a situation of like, do we think they go that high? Because we reasonably could get them into the 17 range. But it's just a question of are players going to jump quickly to that value? Or is there a little bit of a let me take a little bit less than that and we'll kind of gradually get there? There's also the question of term, which I'm pretty sure we did 8 years for both.
Yeah, we
But
we did end up settling on, I double checked, the exact same contract
okay.
projection for both. Most likely what that means is whoever signs first will get slightly less, and whoever signs second will probably get slightly more, unless one of them takes a hometown discount or fits into the team salary cap structure or
So
whatever. But
that's the thing, and you could bring that up with both of them. So Makar, like, how much higher do they go above McKinnon, or do they just kind of say, screw it, he's getting what he's getting because he's Cal Makar? Hughes, you could kind of say, well, they gave Kaprizov 17. They should be able to give him 17. I don't know. One, if that's the case, I could see term being lower, more likely for Quinn Hughes, especially like there's kind of the idea out there, does he try and line up with his brothers, specifically Jack and Luke? I think maybe more so Jack, his
Jack
deal
for sure.
expiring.
Yeah.
Or is there from either player like, listen, I could get this much, but that makes it more difficult for the team to add other pieces, so I'm going to take 2 mil less than I could. That's like why it's difficult with these top players, because could they completely reset the market? Absolutely. That could be anywhere from 15, even 14 to 17, 18. Like it entirely depends what they want to do, how they want it to impact their team. So we'll see. 8 by about 15.1, we'll call it, is what we've got projected.
So what's tough, what I was trying to, as you were kind of talking there, pull up is the comparable player list for Hughes Makar. And the highest paid defenseman by cap hit percentage that we have in all contract sample that we use. So that's basically going back to
I think it's like
mid
14,
2010s
yeah, 14, 15, somewhere around there.
is Eric Carlson's deal with the Sharks, which came in at 14.11% of the cap, which would translate to 16 million overall. So even if we gave both of those as Carlson being the only comparable player, which there was some logic, there was some discussion about doing that, that still could end up being low because their market value is probably realistically Kaprizov level. I did think about bringing forwards, particularly like a Kaprizov, into the comparables for these two, for Makar and Hughes situation, but we stuck to the process. We kept just the defenseman here, and we didn't settle on just Carlson, Drew Doughty's contract, and we also factored in Rasmus Dahlin's contract as well with Buffalo, kind of the three highest paid defensemen in the league. Average those out to get to where we did, but Makar and Hughes have decisions to make, and they could walk in, demand basically whatever they want, or go to the open market and demand whatever they want, or they take what feels comfortable to them to also, as you alluded to, fit other players. Maybe Quinn takes less in Minnesota to allow them in 2 years to bring Jack in and give him like the exact same contract as he has, or whatever, however that works out. It'll be very interesting. We could absolutely be multiple million low on both of these guys,
Or
and I'd
high.
be okay with that. Or high too.
Like that's it's we'll see what the situation dictates pretty much for each of them. Sticking with Colorado, Arturi Lehkonen, I am remembering this one kind of being a conversation around Nikolai Ehlers and what he received. Lehkonen being a player who looks very good on paper, but has dealt with missing time a little bit. So we're at 5 by about 8.7. That's, I believe, the idea was okay, he can beat Ehlers' number, but not necessarily the cap hit percentage. I believe that was the case. That's another interesting one. Signing age 31. Is that something Colorado does to kind of keep the band together? That's one I almost wonder if we don't see that happen.
Yeah, yeah, that also getting the cost certainty there could be just how that all fits in the general cap landscape escape for Colorado. That could
Yeah.
be important to kind of get that locked in.
Yeah. Other significant ones for Colorado, Scott Wedgwood. This was interesting because in my head had a great year. At the same time, he'll be signing for his age 34. And while he's been good in the past couple of years, he has generally been considered a backup. It's kind of landed him in 2 by 5.25, we'll call it. And that's really like it kind of gets him in the same ballpark as Mackenzie Blackwood, who he's kind of there in tandem with. I think that would be very fair for him to ask that. I don't know. Colorado doesn't really seem like the team that will spend that much on their goaltending, so that might be one that he ultimately does not sign for as an extension and could end up hitting the market. It could also do Colorado some favor by waiting. He's unlikely to repeat that season again. He could still have a very good year and he's probably falling in the same range, but because of his varied results in the past, it might be smart to wait, especially having Blackwood sign long term.
Him and Dan Vladar will be kind of, I think, comparable as to where both of the two of them end up falling potentially.
Potentially. Wedgwood being a lot older, though. That's
Yes.
the issue.
Yeah. Nick Waugh, 2 by 4, maybe. He was actually a very good fit with Colorado. The other notable one is Ross Colton, but I would be surprised if he's signing an extension with Colorado. He was good, but seemed to just fall out of favor for whatever reason. He was
Yeah.
oftentimes the odd man out in the playoffs.
I
So
don't
he,
know if the scoring like wasn't quite there. I want to say underlying numbers though, he looked like he's a great player to
yeah.
have. So it is weird.
So he very likely could be a trade candidate for Colorado to also free up a little bit of cap space as well. Well, we gotta keep moving here. Dallas. Liam Bichelle, projection long term 6 by 5.5. He is probably the only one that likely gets done. I guess maybe a Casey DeSmith could get that token like extra year extension or something. But
Yeah.
Sagan, they need to see him healthy before anything's done there. Labushkin, very likely a cap casualty. Sam Steele, I guess, potential, but he kind of is what he is as a good depth player. Projected 2 years, 2.6 million. Oscar Bach, 2 years, 2 million. Tyler Myers, 1 by 1.6. Colin Blackwell, 2 by 1.2. Again, a lot of depth pieces, but for a team that might need to do some roster surgery, roster tweaking, giving out extensions to existing players that are definite, that are support players at best, is probably not where they end up going.
Detroit's next. The big one is DeBrincat. 7 years, 12.1. I think some people were shocked by that number and just aren't fully aware how good he is. And he's a would be a 29-year-old UFA. You're going to have to pay up for that. Part of the issue, we can talk about their cap structure in Detroit that blows it out of the water. You might have to do that to keep a player of his caliber. They just traded for Justin Falk. He'd be eligible. 3 by 7 is what we've got. John Gibson had a solid season for them, 2 by about 5.2, falling in very similar to where Wedgwood did with Colorado. I don't think they're signing Cop to an extension. And really, the only other name kind of I think worth potentially talking about would be Marco Casper. That said, I don't know. We weren't able to do a long-term deal. Comps aren't there for that. So our projection's 2 by 3. I don't know if that's worth doing for either side. I mean, I guess maybe for Detroit if they're signing big deals elsewhere, just cost certainty, but that's just a kind of a weird one to get done this offseason.
Yeah, real quick on DeBrincat. I started lower and then just it's like he's just looking at how many goals and his underlying impact that he has. It's like he can't be this low. The goals are just so much more than a lot of the players I had him down kind of with. And just kind of thinking him versus I don't think end up as a direct comparison, but Kyle Connor extension with Winnipeg ended up at what 12, I think 12 million average annual value.
Yeah.
So it would be a higher percentage of cap, but DeBrincat being that far away from that deal just doesn't feel right, given they're both just established prolific goal scorers. So it'll be it'll be interesting if that actually gets done with Detroit, but that's the market value for top end talent, especially next year. We're through what, probably a quarter of the teams. We haven't rattled off a ton of names where you're a team lining up in unrestricted free agency for them. So if a player like DeBrincat did get there, there is definitely going to be demand in the market. So I'm sure his agency would also realize that and tell Detroit, put the money on the table to get this deal done.
Unlike Detroit, Edmonton kind of has not really many big names. Matt Savoy's the biggest name, and like a lot of the younger RFAs, we've got a shorter deal there. It probably doesn't make sense for really his side to do that this offseason. Some other guys, Emberson, kind of a bottom pair defenseman, Matthias Janmark, fourth line, Szymanski not getting a deal likely this offseason. So not a whole lot of work to do for Edmonton on the extension front. That kind of moves us right into Florida. Some names here, Evan Rodriguez, Eetu Luosterainen, are kind of the two. Let's say third line players. Rodriguez has kind of consistently been a good analytical player throughout his career. So we've got his deal three at about 5 million, and then Luosterainen is four at about 4.9. They should be getting relatively similar deals, and honestly, a team like Florida, I could see them both getting done with the exact same contract.
Yeah, and if they stayed in Florida, wouldn't be shocked. Especially, we have this tax information for premium subscribers on AFP Analytics.
Yep.
That so we're presenting kind of market value if they signed, giving the tax kind of discount 4.6 ish. So if
We
both
would
those
see
players
like
signed up,
3 or 4 years, 4.5. Like that
yeah,
would make sense.
that would be a fair contract. Absolutely.
That's pretty much Florida, other than some other depth guys, unlikely to sign.
Yeah. The only thing, so Florida has a little bit of cap space to work with, but if they did want to potentially go a little bigger fish hunting, the so I could see the extensions getting done just as you said, or if they want to go a little bit bigger fish hunting, they might want to hold off on committing future
Yeah.
dollars wherever possible. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I shouldn't say those are guaranteed to get done. It's just they could
Yeah,
very well get done.
they would make sense to get done, but there's also rationale for them not getting done, as everyone almost in this list.
True. Drew Doughty for the Kings. We'll see if he continues playing. I think there was kind of talk at one point from him that he isn't done soon and could play till he's 40 something. I might be making that up. 2 years at about 7.1 is our deal there. Then it would kind of come into play, what is the goalie situation like in LA? So Kemper and Forsberg could both sign extensions. They've got some prospects on the way who could make an impact eventually. I don't think both of these goalies get done, but like in theory, they could sign one of them. I don't think either of them play to a level where that's really important this offseason. And
Yeah, and
that's pretty much it. Like Turcotte is solid in the bottom six at this point, but hasn't become what they were hoping he would be. Armia, like I don't know if they're rushing to get that done by any means. So it's really Doughty, and then is there something to decide with the goaltending? Probably
and
not.
and the decision could be neither, and give and let
Right.
it play out another year. That given last year didn't go great for Kemper, and Forsberg ended up as kind of the starter by the end of the season. But
Yep.
he's also going to be, I guess he's a little bit young, a little younger, relatively speaking, 34. So that maybe that's the one. But yeah, we'll move on to Minnesota, where we hit on Quinn Hughes with McCarr.
Not the
He
only big one though.
No, certainly not. And speaking of goalie situations, Minnesota is
So
also
yeah,
going to have to make a decision.
it's not simply that Wallstedt was the guy in the playoffs, but also that he's eligible for an extension. Long-term deal, 5 by 7.2 currently. If they wait, that could shoot through the roof if he still kind of stays as the guy. I think regular season it would be likely there's a tandem there if he and Gustafson are both still there. It's also a situation I could see them going short term with Wallstedt. I don't know if that gets done this off season, but maybe trying to lock in his value at a certain number. We've got two by about 4.6. I don't think long term they're going to want to pay Wallstedt and Gustafson. It's an interesting situation. I believe Gustafson has a no move clause, full no trade with that. So I'm curious to see what gives. There were rumors that at one point during the season before the deadline, he was involved in some trade offers. It's tough for me to see that at now, considering he took over in the playoffs and was their guy in the playoffs. But again, he would be much easier for them to move. So that's a very interesting situation.
Other factor there, Gustafson coming off hip surgery too, so
Yeah,
that's an insignificant injury.
no, especially
So,
for a goalie, like
yep.
specifically for goalies, that is very significant.
So, yeah, I fully agree with you. I can't see them committing what it would be like 13, almost 14 million to the two of them long term. A decision's going to have to be made at some point. The decision could be to go short, try and go short with Wallstat and kick the can as far down the road as possible, but something's going to happen, especially considering they're in need of adding some additional firepower up front,
Down the
which
middle
makes
would be
the
ideal.
which makes the other kind of big extension name here, Ryan Hartman, an interesting conversation. So this is one that you thought seemed high. I'm not going to full on dispute that, but I also didn't necessarily have a rationale for getting lower. And also the Charlie Coyle contract extension coming in 6 by 6. We have Hartman projected 5 by 6.3, which would ultimately be a lower percentage of cap than Coyle, but a little bit higher raw average annual value.
It's also younger than Coyle.
Yep. And has really always seems to end up playing almost like top six, top line minutes at some point, at some critical point for the Wild.
Yeah, so for him, it's really a question of like it's almost similar to kind of what we were saying about Buffalo when I was talking about Jack Quinn. Is like you have a useful player here. Are you wanting to improve on that player? Because Hartman's a good center, but is there a little bit too much of like his level and type of player in Minnesota? And would it be better to use those dollars in a different way, potentially?
We'll see what happens there. That's one that I can't imagine Minnesota. I guess I could, but that'd be a tough thing for Minnesota to go into the season with him as a pending unrestricted free agent because the temptation, they don't necessarily want to lose him for nothing because I'm sure they could get a pretty nice package in return or package him and other things to upgrade that position. But also, do they want to commit that type of dollar now, knowing that they could maybe benefit from a little bit more firepower in that spot? I think the only other player to talk about for Minnesota real quick is Jared Spurgeon. Will be at the end of his 7 year contract he signed. We
Yeah.
have him projected 2 years, 3 million. He's still playing at a high level. Concern has been staying on the ice, not necessarily quality of play. But given he's their captain and still, as I said, playing at a high level, I can't. That probably it could be like a token. Let's extend this a year or two now, but I also don't envision it becoming much of a distraction or drama if he does
No.
go into the season unsigned.
And that's one that kind of seems like both sides could say, let's just wait and we'll figure out what the deal looks like in the off season. Like I don't think there's, as you said, too much drama around that. They'll, if the player wants a new deal, they'll probably figure one out. And it shouldn't break the bank at this point in his career.
Going on to Montreal, they are
Demidov,
Demidov, Dobish,
yeah,
and probably the biggest beneficiary of a strong playoffs, Alex Newhook.
yeah, yeah. So I guess real quick, Demidov is one of the few 10.2C guys, meaning no offer sheet talk there. 7 by 8.3 is the long term deal we have. Throughout the playoffs, he probably earned himself a little bit of a bump. So that's one I could see either being low this offseason or honestly, like I would say the player should wait. Remind me, is this one of the players that we were asked about as far
Yeah,
as agent
this is
and
specifically the player I got a
okay.
direct message about and the agency connection.
Yep.
Demidov was the specific player that was kind of because Montreal is very clearly a team that likes to get their young star players locked up as early as possible.
Yep.
So he is kind of the case study for what's going to give team philosophy, or if there's an agency philosophy of trying to do a bridge deal to start off the career, basically to maximize earning potential down the road. So yeah, Demidov was the player. You're 100% right. Will be very interesting to kind of see how this plays out. And I agree with you. Probably the thing that makes the most sense is just wait till next
Yeah.
offseason.
Yeah, because if they're going short term, there's no reason for them to rush into that this offseason with an extension. They might be able to get more value. If the agent says, let's go short term, wait another year. And then even if that is kind of generally the philosophy and they want to budge on a long-term deal and go the long-term route, I mean, why not wait and play one more season and get that production in and try and up the value even more? So I I don't know if that's one that ultimately gets done this offseason, but I'm sure Montreal will definitely try. Dobish is one that could make a lot of sense, and he's really, we can say he's arrived now, had a great playoff stretch. He'd be signing as an age 26 RFA. Like that's what he would be. So he's right on the cusp of unrestricted free agency. 5 years, 7.1 is what we've got right now. That's one I could see them trying to get done, especially after this playoffs is gone. I think he would be interested in it as well to try and cash in on kind of the hype and the good play. So that's one that I would say very much so. I would almost expect a Dobish extension. Demidov kind of on the other end of that spectrum.
Yeah, interesting that we talk about them right after Minnesota because it's a little bit like Minnesota with Gustafson last year, is that they have a guy that's playing really, really well right now, but the guy that might have more long-term potential is actually the one who hasn't really arrived yet in the NHL. That's Jacob Fowler. Yeah, will be super interesting to
Yep.
see the decision there. It could be one of them's traded too. It would be
Yeah.
very tough, I think, for Montreal to trade Dobish now, but you never know if the right deal's out there for them. Then,
So
real quickly, New
yeah, you
Hook.
mentioned New Hook and how this playoffs was great for him. And I think it makes you feel a lot more comfortable when we say 3 years at about 5.1 for New Hook. In general, I think he was kind of getting towards there anyway because he's become a very useful, let's call it third line, but maybe a little more middle six forward. But this playoffs just kind of solidified him as like, okay, maybe he's that type of player you want because he's gonna kind of turn it up a notch in the postseason.
Yeah, we probably should continue moving through a little quicker because, of course, we're always, as
Oh
usual,
yeah,
going long. New Jersey, it's Nico Hischier that everything is around right now. Dawson Mercer also extension eligible. Cody Glass, Brendan Dillon, not real big concerns there. It's Hischier.
yeah,
There's some smoke that he could be traded.
yeah. So that's a name that I think a lot of teams would target, considering he's a year away from unrestricted free agency. The price might not be quite where it is on that, like you've been hearing for someone like a Robert Thomas, who's locked into a team friendly deal. That said, if you're acquiring Heishier, you're likely expecting to sign him to an extension, which we're projecting 8 years at about 11.5 million. He's a 1C, probably a more ideal like elite 2C.
Yeah.
It's just depending on the team. He might quite clearly be the 1C. Moving
So
on to Nashville. Yeah, it's Evangelista potentially 6 by about 7.9. Or maybe we're looking at if Ryan O'Reilly just really likes being in Nashville, then we're maybe talking a couple year extension for him, 2 by 5. But I don't know if that happens. That might kind of be a let's play it out, or maybe he even gets traded.
should we treat him like he has an extension Just like we treat him like he has a trade clause, or do you think that goes out the window with Nashville having a new GM who's clearly showing he's not afraid to make moves in Chris McFarland?
I think it goes out the window.
Yeah, yeah. If McFarland means business, he should absolutely be looking to move O'Reilly for a haul this summer because that's the path the team needs to go at this point.
Yep. Islanders, it's Emil Heineman. Useful, I'd say third liner with maybe a little bit more potential there. We'll see if they go the extension route. 5 years at about 6.5 is what we've got for them. And another kind of similar level player, Simon or Simone, Simon
Not
Holmstrom,
sure.
winger, 4 years, 5.8. That's about kind of where we're at with those two very similar situations. I don't know if they both get done this offseason or honestly if either of them do. Some veterans, Palmieri, Palat, Cizikas. Cizikas could get done just because he's one of those guys that's been there forever. But Lou's gone, so maybe not.
Yeah, he's at least
Palmieri, I
still
don't think happens specifically. I should say, coming off an ACL, it's very unlikely they would sign him this offseason without seeing him play first.
Cizikas at least still is still a good, useful depth defenseman or depth forward, sorry. Heineman, Holmstrom, I think if you're the Islanders, you probably want to see them put together another season at that level before you really are willing to commit terms. So probably Islanders take care of this current year's business and then deal with the restricted free agency later. Moving taking the LIRR up to Penn Station, the Rangers, their conversation is around exactly two players, but they're maybe three players, but they're all very have been shown to be potentially impactful long-term pieces. Will Cooley, Gabe Perreault, and Noah Laba had some minutes with the team, so I'm gonna throw him in there as a long-term impactful player potentially. We'll see there, but Cooley's the one that's most priority because he is going to be 25 years old, so getting closer to unrestricted free agency, has consistently been moving up in their lineup and playing more minutes in all situations. Basically, I'm saying that deal seemingly is trending in a manner that it's only going to get more expensive the longer they wait on that. Perot 10.2C, so wouldn't be offer sheet eligible. Both these players were projecting Cooley 6 years, Perot 7, but basically those cap hit percentages are exactly the same. I wonder if we
I
messed that up there.
I
Or,
want to double check
yeah,
our comps for
yeah,
those.
but
The
we have the
comps are
exact same
different, but
cap hit
yeah,
percentage. So I don't know if one of us accidentally typoed over something, but it would
potentially.
make sense. It would make sense. It's very odd that we come up with the exact same number, but both should be long-term pieces for the Rangers. We'll see what happens. We'll see what gets done there. Definitely a little less of a rush on Perot, but it could make sense for the team to try to capitalize and get value now. Cooley again, that should be a priority because I think it's only going to get more expensive next offseason.
Ottawa, Drake Batherson, that's kind of the key name.
Yep.
6 years at about 9.8 is what we've got.
Yeah.
Um, Very good scoring winger. That's what it's going to cost. That's one I feel like it should get done. Um, we'll see. They are always it's always out there that Ottawa's kind of looking for some more scoring up front. So I think they would want to keep what they do have. They've also got a couple defensemen. Tyler Clevin ended up playing some important minutes and had a pretty solid season this year. Artem Zub is usually a pretty serviceable right shot as well. So for him, 4 by 5.1, Clevin 4 by 5.5 is kind of where we're at right now. That said, Ottawa could look to make some other moves both up front and defensively, so maybe none of these names really get done. We'll have to see. There's some other more down the lineup. Amadio and Fogel should be able to ask for semi decent deals. 3 by 3.75 for Amadio, Fogel 3.1 million on a 3-year deal. It's not insignificant. I just don't know if those really get done this offseason.
Yeah, my only hesitation with Batherson. So you're 100% right. Ottawa always seems to be looking for scoring, but they also always seem to be looking to maybe shake up their core a little bit, and you wonder if that's potentially the next name that gets moved out. They moved out Josh Norris for Dylan Cousins last year. You wonder if Batherson's the next one, or if you wonder if that's a bigger domino. But we won't start that fire right now. We'll move on to
Philly,
Philadelphia instead.
yep, Michkov. If they want to get this done, we've got 8 by about 10 million. One of the big things there to acknowledge, because people are going to compare Michkov and Demidov. Michkov regular season underlying numbers were a little bit better than Demidov. There's the drama, I'll just flat out call it drama in Philly around him. So I don't know if this gets done. Um, but he would be right on a long-term deal to be asking for close to 10 mil. Otherwise, not worth signing it for him.
For me, I think your logic is spot on, which means this is an extension that does not get done this offseason.
One that could in Philly, Tyson Forster,
Yeah.
5 years, 7.9, just kind of a good all around winger. That one feels like it would be smart to get done. We've heard Vladar could honestly pretty much be announced now. It's just, it can't actually happen until July 1st. So we've got him 5 by 6.3. The rumors have kind of been high fives to six. I am curious to see what happens there. Um, will absolutely say it's hilarious watching Flyers fans who just lost their minds on us in our mentions about how we had him projected for like, I don't even know, but it wasn't close to
1.8,
the
I think.
deal
Yeah.
he got.
Yeah.
And then now that we have a
The
extension out there and there's all these rumors of a long-term deal close to 6 million, they're all flipping out that Vladar's going to get signed. He had one good year. Well, that's how this works.
Yep.
Ristolainen, 4 years, 6.1 is our projection. I will be interesting to see if that gets done with Philly. They have seemed like they want to rework their defensive group. That might be a player that ultimately is moved out. Um, I'd say now we can move to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Crosby gets his 1 year 8.7 million is what our projection is, solely because that just seems to be how he does it.
Yeah. I
That's
don't
the
even know if I
comp.
if I actually ran him through the model or just said
No, no,
this is probably his market value.
you
So we're just
texted me on Crosby and said, can Crosby's comp be Crosby in his 8.7? Absolutely. Now, does he do 10 by, or sorry, 1 year 10.87? Maybe. I will assume 8.7 is in the AAV somehow. But Carlson, 3 by 6.6. They've got some other players. Tommy Novak, 4 by 5.6, a useful, more
middle
so third
six.
line, middle
Yeah.
six guy. Parker Witherspoon, 4 years, 4.75. He had a very decent year for them. Gerard came in for 4.3. Brazeau is an insignificant player, but 2 by 2.6 about, and that's pretty much where we're at with
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of those really get done. Crosby's more of a we'll play it out and get it done. Well, I guess maybe he could sign an extension just year by year, decide, but we'll
And
see.
any drama or speculation going into the year of is he going to play another year? Just say, yeah, I'm planning on 2 more years. So let's get the extension. Let's get it at
Right.
8.7. Let's get it done. I think the only one that maybe could actually sign is maybe Witherspoon, given Pittsburgh's blue line a little bit thin. He seemingly was a very, I shouldn't say seemingly, he was a very good fit there. And if he has another very good season, that number could jump up more. I think he's the only other
Yeah.
one that makes maybe a little bit of sense there. But I think with that, we move on to Seattle, who they have a couple interesting, I think really one interesting name, Jared McCann, who seemingly has been in trade rumors for a couple years now. I wonder if, given where Seattle is, given they're kind of reshaping things yet again, I wonder if he's someone that ends up getting moved
I think
this
he'd get a
off
good
season.
return.
Yeah.
It'd be a good return. Very good, not elite, which is kind of what they've had at best in Seattle. So it just depends on the direction of the team, but I don't know. I don't know if that's an extension that gets done there. Like it feels like he could be on the way out. They probably should try to get Vince Dunn signed. That's 7 years, nine is our projection. And then some of the younger players, Riker Evans, Shane Wright. I kind of question what the plan is with both of those players because neither have truly, I think, been given like that full top opportunity. So those are two like are those ultimately trade assets? I we'll see. I don't really know what's going on in Seattle.
Yeah. And because of that, they probably shouldn't be necessarily handing out extensions right now,
True.
given they don't seem to know who their core is. I guess Vince Dunn's is close to being confident in, but at the same point, you want to shake things up. He's one of your most attractive assets to probably get a good return. Him and McCann. We'll see what happens there, but yeah, I don't think that they should be in the business of giving extensions. We won't talk about your guy Philip Grubauer this episode.
He actually had a good
So
year this year.
he did have a good year this year.
Moving on to San Jose. Macklin Celebrini. This is the one where we chose to really break the bank, even though it really wouldn't break San Jose's bank too much because they've got a lot of usable cap space. 7 years at about 17 million is what we put for Celebrini. He's kind of a blank check guy. Like
Yeah.
w- we want to get this done. What's it going to take? And then, yeah, Will Smith comes in after him. 7 years at about 9.75, we'll call it. If I am San Jose, I try and lock in this young core. So really, extension wise, it would be Celebrini and Smith this offseason. Orlov's eligible. I don't think they're doing that.
No.
Askarov's eligible. I don't know if they do that. So he did not have a good year. Defense in front of him was not good, to say the least. 3 years, 5.6 is where I could get with Askarov running his projection. And like, I don't know if he wants to do that, if he's kind of supposed to be the guy. I don't know if San Jose wants to do that because that takes him into unrestricted free agency. So that feels like one that, like, even though he's supposed to be part of this core moving forward, I don't know if this off season is the right time.
He'll be a restricted free agent next offseason and have two
Right.
more years of that. So there's a little bit of wiggle room to kind of play out. I agree. If neither side feels comfortable with the direction, let it play out another year. So no urgency there. We'll say with Celebrini real quick, he has the luxury of waiting until Bedard signs and then coming in however
Yeah.
much on top of that. It'll be interesting how that dynamic does end up playing out, but he will definitely come in above Bedard no matter what Bedard signs
Oh,
for.
it should be fairly significantly above. That said, it sounds like Bedard could get a number that is pretty significant
Yeah.
and even a bit above what we had him projected at. Which, hey, good for him if that happens, but that will most certainly help push Celebrini. St. Louis, Jimmy
Yeah.
Snuggerud, Jake Neighbors, two wingers who, in theory, could get deals this offseason. Snuggerud's long term came in at 8.8. That's the projection. And Neighbors being a little less flashy, a little more of a heavy style forward, 4 years, 6.3. Neighbors also being a little bit older, arbitration eligible. Snuggerud would be a 10.2C. Joel Hofer, that's an interesting one because there's a lot of rumors around Binnington potentially being on the way out this year. And I think that is kind of the right pathway to go down for St. Louis. So maybe they do try and get Hofer an extension, kind of lock him in as the guy.
The other interesting thing there is was also smoke around St. Louis acquiring like a wall stat or so asking for a wall stat or potentially one of the Montreal goalies or
Yep.
maybe Devin Levi even from Buffalo. It- Especially if they were seemingly interested in Wallstat, that would to me indicate they might not feel great about either guy.
It sounded more like Wallstedt was an offer from Minnesota, more so than an ask. What
But
was more what I took it as.
regardless, the fact that there's a little bit of a connection there,
Yeah.
interesting when both Hofer and Bennington are extension eligible this offseason with that kind of added context as well. They got some decisions to make in net. As you said, Bennington probably out the door. Will be interesting if they commit to Hofer. Real quickly, neighbors as well. I think St. Louis, if St. Louis does this deal, I think it would be a little disappointing that this is what they end up, kind of his level has ended up at. I think they would have liked to have given him a bigger contract based on a higher level of play, but he came on pretty strong and kind of hasn't really progressed anymore.
Yeah. I think he's still turned into a useful player,
Yeah,
but it the early flash
yeah.
where you kind of hoped like, oh, could there be more? There hasn't really been more. Pius Suter.
Logan Malou,
Oh yes.
Mayu.
Yep. Long term about 6 by 6 is what we've got him at right now. You mentioned Binnington. That's not getting done in St. Louis. I could see a team trading for him and handing him a deal, which would be an interesting choice, but 2 by 5.1. Well, we'll see. There's a lot of moving parts with St. Louis. So extensions could ultimately just wait. Going to Tampa Bay, Kucherov is the big one.
Yep.
I'd expect that to get done, and I believe Panarin was one of the comps that kind of drove.
I believe he's the only comp,
Okay,
which
so
which
2 by
makes
12 mil is the projection.
yeah, and I expect that comes in potentially higher. I think Kucherov's a step above Panarin, but I
Yes.
had no comparable players to justify anything higher than that. So I think that's where it ends up on our sheet. But I think the actual contract, if Kucherov wants it, which I would think he might, probably ends up another million or two higher.
That could be the Tampa. I guess really looking at Tampa, there's not a ton of like fully discounted deals across the board, but maybe he sticks to kind of a 12 mil and says, you know what, this I'm getting my pay, and it kind of in theory leaves a little room for other improvements.
Yeah.
Diastu, I believe, is how that is pronounced.
Yeah.
Defenseman for Tampa, 4 by 4.5. Pontus Holmberg, decent bottom, well, really like fourth line. Can add Goncalves. Did I say that one right?
I think it's Gonzalez.
No, no way.
Okay, good
I'm gonna
comp.
look that one up.
Yeah.
Emil Lilleberg. So just kind of more of the depth, kind of around the bottom of the lineup guys. All right, let's see this.
And then we would be a mess if we didn't mention your guy, Zemgus Girgensons
Zemgus,
1 year
Gonçal Gonçalves,
Gonsalves. Yeah.
something like that.
We were trying our best. I think it is Gonsalves.
Kind of the middle of what we were both saying.
Yeah.
Johansson. So is there like a throw the backup goalie an extra year or two?
Yeah.
I don't know. Moving on from Tampa to Toronto. Brandon Carlo, Simon Benoit, these aren't getting done.
No,
Um,
I don't even think we spend any more time on Toronto extensions
yeah.
because it's
M-
not happening. Carlo
Move
Benoit,
it. Yeah,
no.
no way. Moving on to Utah. Lawson Krause, John Marino are kind of the two names. Krause coming in 5 by 6.3, Marino about 5 by, I'm going to say 6.25, but you could also round to 6.3. Not insignificant deals, kind of middle of the lineup guys. Krause, a forward, Marino, a defenseman, right shot. So um, we'll see what they plan there. Utah, interestingly, they do have some younger defensive prospects. So I wonder if Marino, I don't know.
He
I
was so,
wonder if he could be an expendable piece, but he's a very good defenseman.
he was so good him and Nate
Yeah.
Schmidt were a fantastic pair for them this year. And at that what he brings, his ceiling for earnings is going to
Yeah.
be not super high. So like a 6 by 6 ish deal for
Yeah.
a very solid second pair guy like that should be a we get this done and then we worry about fitting pieces around him, but we know we got at least someone on our second pair that's reliable.
And
To me that one almost should get done, but
a team like that, that's always at least rumored to be hunting for a big name, you can use the prospects there. So yeah, Marino could get done. Vancouver, Zeev Buyum.
yeah.
That's pretty much the only one that's likely to get done if they go that route. I could see them waiting. He didn't really burst onto the scene as kind of a top young offensive defenseman. So we'll see there. Heedle, O'Connor, Elias Pettersson, defenseman. Ogren, Ratu, like kind of lower the lineup or not established prospects, unlikely to sign.
Yeah. The
And
only thing I'll say real quickly on Bullion is it might be more of a marketing thing to give him the long-term extension after he was the big piece in the Quinn Hughes trade.
true.
But I guess the good thing is new management, new everything kind of in place. So maybe not the same pressure to kind of make that trade look a little bit better, prop that up. Got three teams
Vegas,
left. Vegas next.
Mark
Mark
Stone,
Stone, who,
th 3 by 9.5. He's a difficult one for me because he's a very elite player still, but there's just in the back of your head, there's the injury issues.
well, at least that's what we're told as the public.
True. I mean, it seems like he legitimately has
Oh yeah,
injury
there
issues.
maybe one of those was a little less legit, but yeah,
Yeah. William Carlson, 3 by 4.7. Important player for them. Also has sort of had some injury issues of late. Carter Hart, we had 2 by about 4.1. I'm curious that may have increased this playoff run. It's been entirely him this playoffs and not Aiden Hill. Down the lineup, Braden Bowman, Nick Dowd, Alexander Holtz are eligible for extensions. Maybe they would try and get Bowman locked in, just kind of being a younger, useful player. I don't know if they go for Dowd or Holtz. Uh,
I
Stone's
guarantee
kind
you
of
they won't
the
go
big
for
one.
Holtz. Definitely not
Yeah,
for
yeah, they
Holtz.
won't. They won't. Hart could be a conversation because of the playoffs. I could see them having that. Carlson, I wonder if that's where they go with that money. He'd be signing as an age 34 free agent. Recent injury issues. They've got some center depth there. And Stone being the captain, I feel like they could try and get a deal done, but that could be one that they just say, let's wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Before an extension with Hart is done, they got to figure out probably Aiden Hill first. They can't commit to
Yeah.
both Hart and have Hill's contract still on the books.
There's all this, well, they could just trade Aiden Hill. And I look at that contract and how like the season went for him.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know how easy that is. They're probably attaching something, I would assume,
Yeah.
try and get that done. Winnipeg, Nino Niederreiter's kind of the bigger name. I don't think they do that. He's seemed to fall off a little bit.
He's still what he is, but he's now 34 years old.
Yeah,
So
the
he's
offense
basically
is
what he
not where it
is,
was.
a little bit older. So yeah.
Elias Salomonsson, I don't think that gets done. That's
No.
more a defenseman they tried to get some time late last year. Could be more impactful in the future. Kind of their next wave on defense, but that's not an extension getting done. Barron, no. Nemesnikov, that's one that like random out of nowhere wouldn't shock me too much, but I don't think that's happening.
Yeah.
And that pretty much brings us to the last team, Washington.
Which I think there's two guys. So let me get the
Yeah.
eligible ones out of the way and we'll finish on two guys. Clay Stevenson, who's like their third goalie, Dylan McElrath, that's a AHL player, AHL captain. Declan Chisholm, sure.
Depth.
Anthony Beauvillier, I doubt they have so many forwards in their system. Does not make sense to get an extension done ahead of time. If things go well, sure, maybe you work it out during the season, but even if he walks in free agency, no one's beat up on that. The two interesting ones, both restricted, age-wise, almost opposite ends. Ryan Leonard, 22 years old, projection 7 years, 8.3 million. He's a tough one. We had a conversation about him. The scoring metrics aren't fully, or the scoring's there, but the underlying metrics aren't fully caught up yet. But you also see the potential and you see the ceiling. I wonder if that's one that kind of just gets strung out another offseason because there isn't any urgency. See what type of step he takes forward. Could be a little it if anyone's going to benefit from that approach, it's going to be Leonard, but we'll kind of see how that plays out. I don't necessarily expect that to get done this offseason. Just doesn't seem to make a ton of sense for if I was Washington, that number might be a little bit high for me right now. But if I'm Leonard's camp, that's I'm going to need at least that to sign up for 7 years at this
Yeah.
point. So that's probably one that doesn't fully come together. Which brings us to the last player to talk about quickly, Justin Sourdough, who everyone thought Washington was kind of crazy for what they gave up for him last offseason, but he came on second half of this year.
Yeah. Yeah, so I believe it was 2 second rounders.
So it was,
That
yeah,
sounds right.
it was more than Beck Malenstein, I think.
Yeah, so ultimately didn't like have a whole lot going for him in Florida, and that might have just been more of an opportunity issue
It
at that
was,
point.
yeah.
Much more clear role in Washington, so our deal for him's projected for by about 5.25. This is an interesting one where I could see the team wanting to try and get a deal done now, especially if there's any avenue for his role to increase. Because he looked pretty good across the board, and
Yeah.
if they put him into more minutes and he continues that, the the AAV is going to skyrocket.
Yeah. 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 And even if they lock him in right now and he's a very good third line play driving player. 5 million is fine.
Exactly. Yep.
So this, in from his camp's perspective, this would be a very good opportunity for him to get a very nice payday, given he really hasn't had a shot his entire career to get
Yeah.
there.
The 4 years too, I think kind of is a good trade-off of like, okay, you get your money now, but you're also setting yourself up to be unrestricted free agent
S-
at like 29.
Still in enough of a prime. Yeah.
Yep. So like that type of term would make sense. And as I fully agree, as you said, like if you're Washington, that's reasonable third line money, like good third line money. So
Yeah.
that would be one I wouldn't be shocked if it doesn't get done. I wouldn't be shocked if all of these don't get done because it's kind of throwing darts for the most part. This just seems like a situation where it could make some sense for both team and player.
Yeah. I think that concludes our list. So
Yeah.
next episode we have planned is, we'll call it our matchmaker episode. We've been experimenting behind the scenes a little bit with this episode with some video. I don't think you're going to see this in a video format. You might, probably not though, maybe some small clips or something. But we're going to see next episode potentially about integrating a little bit more video and putting out maybe the full episode on YouTube or something. See, where we'll temper expectations, but there is a potential there. So you know how you'll know if we have a video element or something on YouTube is by following us on social media, AFP Analytics, X, Blue Sky, Threads. Also, probably a good idea to check out our website because who knows, maybe we'll integrate it there too. AFPanalytics.com, all the contract projections, including these extensions. There's two separate tabs, I guess we can call it, two separate drop downs under our contract projections, but they're all there. All the base projections available for free for all users. If you want the contract comparables and tax information, or just want to support our work, or want to be able to generate our cool graphics on your own, small subscription, $3 a month or $28 for an entire year. That's 20% savings if you sign up for an entire year. And I think with that, we appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you next time.